What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Check the Kick podcast. This is found on Sherdog.com. Pretty awesome website. You should check it out sometime. Home of the Fight Finder and many other really cool shows. Pretty weird weekend, I guess, we're coming off of with fights, but also pretty good. The UFC Paris card definitely went out with a bang. And I had a pretty good week, busy with work, got to do some fishing, which is my other hobby besides doing MMA stuff. So pretty good all around weekend for me. I hope all you guys had a good week. We got a pretty bad pay-per-view coming up. But we will go ahead and start the show off. We will basically just get rid of our leftovers here with the first segment of the show. Out with the old, we have Ciryl Gane defeating Sergey Spivak by a second round TKO. And I mean, if you watch this fight, this is like a one-sided ass whipping. And I'm here every week to eat crow. And I was dead wrong. I thought Spivak would definitely have a lot more success with any of his grappling, but probably 45 seconds or a minute into this fight, I had a feeling that it definitely was going to not be that way. 1 minute and I knew it was just going to be curtains for Spivak here. Really bad showing for him. He had so much. He just had no answers for Gane's speed, no answers for his athleticism, no answers for his jab. All he was doing was just shelling behind a high guard, eating tons of body punches. And Ciryl Gane is back to form, I guess. I don't know if this fight really told us a lot about where Gane is, just because Spivak just didn't. Spivak looked like shit. He looked really terrible. Spivak landed like 11 strikes to Gane's like 111 or some crazy amount. Gane landed 12 times the amount of strikes that Spivak did. Everything Gane wanted to land, he landed. His jab looked great. Again, his body punching looked great. Not a ton of kicking from him in this fight. I think he knew if he would have done those same stabbing leg kicks he did against Tuivasa, that would open him up to some single legs and maybe some sort of grappling entanglements that he just did not want to be in with Spivak. But Spivak looks slow. Even his walkout, he did not look very confident. He got in on one takedown, one single leg, and Gane was just able to use his athleticism. I mean, again, this is heavyweight. He just jumped out of it, and then there was another double leg that was just a poor shot from Spivak, but I think it was more based off Spivak just not having any answers for his speed. And Gane just stuffed it, shoved his head into the canvas, and got out of there. Basically gave him the bird and just disengaged. There was a huge lump on Spivak's rib where you could see it looked like he had a broken rib pretty early into the second round. It was very, very noticeable. And then the knockout was Ciryl Gane is just such an interesting striker where when it's slow paced, it's on his terms. He just very tactful, very smooth, very fluid. But then the second he gets you hurt, when he goes for the kill, he turns into like a B+ kickboxer. Well, I give him an A on heavyweight standards. He turns into like he goes from like an A kickboxer, A- kickboxer to like a D+. He's really getting away with those back of the head shots too, but we'll talk about that in a second. He's got a killer instinct, but everything he does when it comes to skill and tactfulness just gets thrown out the window when he's going in for the kill. Those clubbing shots, it looked like he was swinging a hammer at the back of Spivak's head. And it's something that he's been able to get away with. This is his third fight where he's done this. He did it to Tuivasa, where if you get hurt in front of him and you start to turn, he is clubbing hammer fist to the back of your head. And that's what he did to Spivak. He started hurting him to the body. Against other heavyweights, shelling up like that may work, but not against Gane. Gane is just going to just wreck your body. He crushed Spivak with so many beautiful body shots. The finishing sequence was him going to the body. Spivak finally just keeling over, dropping his guard. Gane was able to start landing clean shots. And then when he went for the kill, it was just, he turned into a hailstorm of crazy hammer fist and plenty of other shots, and Spivak kind of goes crumbling to the ground. Gane isn't a guy with one shot power at heavyweight. He doesn't have like Derek Lewis power where it's just thundering. He touches you once and you're dead. He doesn't have that. He's not gonna. And against lower level heavyweights, he probably would, but his fights are not going to look like that uppercut that Derek Lewis landed on Curtis Blades, which just deaded him, or Francis Ngannou knockouts, whatever. But he's definitely fast. He's got pretty good footwork. I'm not going to call it great. He's got pretty good footwork. And he could have just used, if you put these two dudes in a cage together and just had them wrestle for 15 minutes straight, I don't even know if Spivak would have ever gotten a takedown. He couldn't keep up. He's just so slow-footed. Spivak looked like he had two left feet in there too. So uncoordinated, so slow. Gane is just, Gane's an A+ athlete, and Spivak is a D+ athlete. Slow, lumbering, no fast twitch skills. He landed a couple shots on Gane when he actually went for it, but he would try to turn a corner and head Gane off, and he was trying to punch ahead of Gane. But by the time his punch got to where it wanted to be, Gane was already past that. When you're fighting, you always want to punch where your opponent's going to be. He's trying to punch where Gane is going to be, and he's so slow that he's trying to land shots where he's going to be, and he misses him and is landing behind him. It's really going to set him back. And Spivak's an overachiever. I'm kind of kicking myself in the dick for thinking that a big Francis Ngannou and John Jones having grappling success was going to mean that Spivak was going to. And that's just me. When it comes to wrestling and MMA, especially at heavyweight, and what Spivak did to Lewis, I just thought he'd be able to pull it off, but I really should have realized that the speed and athleticism, Spivak had absolutely nothing for him. This fight looked like, it really looked like a former champion, even though he was interim. It looked like a former champion fighting somebody outside of the top 20. It looked like if Robert Whittaker were to just fight Dustin Stoltzfus or like Gerald Meerschaert. That's what this fight looked like. I don't know what it means for Spivak. For Gane, it means a lot. My yogurt, maybe they'll sponsor me and send me some free yogurt. For Gane, it definitely means that he is, especially with a performance like this, he went in there and obliterated Spivak. This is setting him up for a title shot. Bisping pointed to Tom Aspinall. I know Bisping and Tom Aspinall are boys. Everyone knows that. They're also from the same, UK, whatever. He points to Aspinall. He goes, "Hey, Gane, Tom Aspinall's in the crowd. What do you think? Is that a fight you're looking for next?" Ciryl Gane no-sells it. He says, "I want a path back to the title." And kind of curious to see where they put Gane. I don't know if they'll try to give him a fight, quick turnaround, something maybe towards the end of the year with that big New York card. Sergey Pavlovich is weighing in as a replacement. If I'm Ciryl Gane, I'm looking to fight Tom Aspinall or Sergey Pavlovich on that same card with Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic, because one has to assume that both of those guys are probably done after that. And I don't see the winner of either one of those fights being willing to fight Sergey Pavlovich, Tom Aspinall, or Ciryl Gane. I think Ciryl Gane is the easiest matchup for Jon Jones, probably. But I definitely think Ciryl Gane would perform better in a Jon Jones rematch. Tom Aspinall and Sergey Pavlovich are two dudes with good boxing, especially Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall is like the nightmare matchup for Jon Jones at heavyweight, just because he is equally fast, equally athletic, and can box really well and has good BJJ and good wrestling. And Jon Jones is, I would say Jon Jones's weakest part of his MMA game is just his straight boxing. And Tom Aspinall is also faster than Jon Jones. But back to Gane. Hopefully he gets another big fight. Again, he said he wants to fight for the title. I just hope that they don't have him like rematch Volkov if Volkov wins on this coming weekend. But good performance for Gane. He got $50K for it. He's going to need it because we're going to talk about what happened to him in the middle segment of the show. But either way, great performance for him. Spivak needs to go back to the drawing board. Spivak will probably just fight some meddling contender. Maybe Spivak can fight the loser of Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Curtis Blades, especially if it's Jairzinho Rozenstruik, because Jairzinho is going to need some sort of Jailton Almeida. I'm so sorry. Jailton Almeida Blades. If Jailton loses to Curtis Blades, I think him versus Spivak would make sense, because Jailton would need some sort of a comeback fight, because I think the UFC is kind of liking Jailton Almeida. Either way, great performance by Gane. Moving on to the co-main event of the UFC Paris, we have Rose Namajunas taking her first flyweight fight, and she lost against Manon Fiorot. I'm here to talk about this fight, but I don't feel good about either one of these two women moving forward. Manon had a one-handed fighter in front of her, a fighter that can be broken in Rose Namajunas, and Rose still went out there and won the third round. Rose is kind of notorious for landing those little cheeky head clashes. It is something that she kind of does now, which I guess that kind of shows me something that Manon can take a big clash of heads and not be deterred. Manon's game is she really relies on being a physical southpaw, where it's a lot of 1-1-2s and then a lot of check hooks, and her right hook is not good. She threw a right hook at Rose in the third round, and literally it looked like someone shot her with a poison dart because she got so far over herself. She kind of tripped and fell to the ground. I really didn't like Rose's. First off, Rose switched camps now. She bought a house, moved, which is really weird. Her just kind of reappearing up a division after making a large purchase. It's kind of like, was this a money grab? Tell me what you guys think, if you thought this was just a reach for money for Rose, or if Rose really felt like she could win a title at 125. Rose is definitely not fighting for a title at women's flyweight. If she can't get takedowns and that's the game that she's going to bring to Manon Fiorot, I would not favor her against Grasso. I would not favor her against Blanchfield at all, and I would not favor her against Shevchenko at all. I know her and Shevchenko have trained a lot together. They would know more how that fight would go than me. Either way, Rose had a lot of slick stuff in the pocket where when she would throw, she could land on Manon. I think Rose is a better MMA fighter. She went back to the corner between the first and second round saying, my finger is broken. If you saw, her finger is like bent out. like her finger got jacked up, so she kind of got stuck into being a one-handed fighter. She fought out of southpaw a lot. She was countering Manon over her lead hand pretty well. Manon was trying to hit her with the lead hook. Rose was able to counter it. She was able to counter a lot of Manon's jabs, but Manon just wasn't deterred. I didn't like Rose's game plan. Looping back to that, Rose was trying to get a lot of takedowns, and I just don't like when a fighter moves up a weight class, especially with somebody with her striking ability, to try to wrestle. You need to go out there and you need to just be the fleet-footed, faster striker. That's what you need to work on if you're moving up a weight class, in my opinion. Rose is a pretty good wrestler. She was kind of shooting these like weird TJ Dillashaw type where she will get in on a double, but then also get in, the foot behind and try to trip. She was also wrestling from her knees a lot, looping back to Jailton Almeida. Jailton Almeida does that at heavyweight, but he's a big dude, super strong. That's not going to work at 125. And Manon just had success with the volume. Like, she just wasn't deterred. She stuck to her game plan. Manon is a very nuts and bolts fighter, and I think she really relies on a lot of her physicality. For Manon moving forward, Rose is a former champion, but Rose is a former champion at 115. Rose is coming off of a terrible fight to Carla Esparza, and then she lost this fight too, which wasn't a great fight, and Manon lost the third round. I think the shitty performance, I thought the performance was fine against Taila Santos. I think Blanchfield's win against Taila Santos is a much better win looking at them compared to this, where Blanchfield lost the first round against Santos and was able to develop an idea and actually, switch her game plan up a little bit and make adjustments and win the second and third round, where Manon won the first two rounds and then lost the third round against a one-handed fighter moving up a weight class. Rose is great, but at 125, Taila Santos is a better MMA fighter than Rose Namajunas. Taila Santos, look what Taila did to Shevchenko. Manon called for a title shot. She said, I beat a former champion. Now it's time for me to beat a real champion. I think Manon Fiorot should. It's too bad Macy Barber she just got surgery. Like, I think yesterday or just this past weekend, she just got surgery. So for Macy, I don't think Macy will be recovered in time to take a fight with Manon. But that would be a pretty interesting fight, Macy Barber versus Manon Fiorot. Like, Macy Barber is one of the more physical women at 125, and she's improving a lot. She looked really, really good in her last fight. It's too bad Macy Barber's out. Next weekend, well, not next weekend, but the weekend after, this coming weekend, we have a pretty big women's flyweight fight, Shevchenko versus Grasso. I don't know what the UFC is going to do with that. If Shevchenko wins, which is kind of likely, if Shevchenko wins, they may book a third fight, or they may just treat it like Nunes Pena and just think the first one was a flash in the pan, a one-off. So I'm just not too sure. Manon Fiorot could fight Erin Blanchfield in a number one contenders fight, because we may be getting stuck with the third fight with Shevchenko and Grasso. If Grasso wins, I think we need to do Shevchenko versus Manon maybe. And then we can do Blanchfield versus Grasso. I think that would make the most sense. But in a couple weeks, matchmaking for Manon will probably be a little easier than it is today. Either way, okay performance by Manon. She got the win. She beat a former champion. And Rose should probably just go back to 115. Not the most intriguing or fun fight. But this fight, this is a guy that's really starting to creep on my radar. But now he's there. This dude is just a French banger. We got Benoit Saint Denis getting that really impressive win over Thiago Moises. Benoit looked really good here tonight. He did make mistakes. it definitely wasn't as clean of a win as his Ismail Bonfim win. But I like that he was able to out grapple and kind of just, yeah, he whenever he walked, he was just marching Thiago Moises forward, crushing him with body kicks. Anytime he would pressure Moises against the cage, he was just a bigger, more physical dude, throwing big combinations. He would land 3 or 4 big power shots, and then Moises would counter him and cause him to reset. We already know Saint Denis is durable as shit. His Aleski dos Santos fight, he showed everyone he was uber durable. And in this fight, he did take some big shots from Moises. Moises is, when he's forced to strike with people, he's much more of a slower pace, will get on the front foot, but much more of a slower pace dude. Benoit really drug a brawl out of Moises. They were throwing elbows. There was 2 different sequences. Paul Felder was like, this is like a Muay Thai fight. There was 2 different sequences in the first and the second round where they're both just in the pocket. Wow, just high guard, throwing elbows at each other. I'm hitting my mic with elbows. These dudes are just throwing elbows at each other, exchanging elbow combinations, which was dope. They're like looking like praying mantises for a little bit there. I loved Saint Denis' fearlessness to take Thiago Moises down. He crushed him, cut him with a huge elbow in the first round, had him gushing and bleeding everywhere. In the second round, he just took him down, caused Thiago Moises to turtle, and he just flattened him out and was just crushing him with shots against the cage. The referee came in and was like, fight back, fight back, fight back. And Saint Denis just poured it on. I thought he could have maybe let him up, or someone like Morgan Charrier, maybe go back and body kick him. But he just pounded him out, crushed Moises. I really like Saint Denis. I just like his game where he kicked Thiago Moises in the balls twice with that body kick. I think the body kick is becoming like one of his best weapons. He spammed that shit like crazy against Bonfim. He spammed it here. And if he's willing to spam leg kicks against someone that can wrestle with a high BJJ level that Thiago Moises has, I'm curious to see what he would do it against like an actual like American wrestler. Is he willing to give up that leg to somebody, someone like a Michael Chandler or something like that may take that leg and use it to get a takedown. He kicked him in the balls twice, and the ref was like, watch your weapon. You do it again. Like, that's the final warning. And he still kept throwing it. And I love that. He knew that was just part of his game. And he kind of just ran over Moises in between the first and second. St. Denis' corner was telling him, don't brawl with him. You don't need to brawl with him. St. Denis is also huge at this weight class, and he's just 4 fights in a row. He's streaking now. These are 2 great wins. He called for the winner of Fiziev and Gamrot. I don't know if the UFC will give him that, but I think him versus Matt Frevola would just be fucking awesome. 2 dudes with 2 great beards that are willing to slang and bang. And Frevola's in a ton of fun fights. Saint Denis is clearly another guy that's a contestant for just having badass fights, and this dude may become like fighter of the year. Yeah, he's at 155. This is like the second hardest division to become top 15, especially top 10 or top 5 in. But this guy is a top 15 fighter in my opinion. He's great. I am doing a show this coming Wednesday, which I believe will be the September 6th. Keep an eye out. This will be on the Shillen and Duffy show. It's a fantasy MMA draft, and we need to pick one fighter outside of the top 15 in the Sherdog rankings. And if Saint Denis is not in the top 15 when I put my shit together, I hope Jay Petru will also be joining. I really hope they're not listening to the show, because I think Saint Denis might be my pick for lightweights. He might be my outside of the top 15 guy, because this dude's got some real effing potential. For Moises, he gets matched up pretty tough if you really look at his record. The dude's fought Benaudariu. She's fought Bobby Green. Shit, he's fought Israel. I can't speak today, guys. I am sorry. I'm just gonna call him Mahashev because I'm getting too tongue-tied. I don't think he'll get that fight either. The Fiziev Gamrot, I don't see either one of those guys taking this fight. He called for the loser, which I like that, a guy that was willing to call for the loser of a fight. I think that's kind of funny. Great performance from Saint Denis, though. He's a guy to watch. He's definitely the most entertaining fighter out of France right now, in my opinion. So shout out to that guy. That was really dope. And just a quick recap of the rest of that card from UFC France. Volkan Oezdemir had a great win against Guskov. Violent club and sub finish. That was awesome. His check hook was firing. He looked great. If I had more time to talk about him, I would. And I probably should have went over his fight over the Rosen-Fiorot fight, but the Rosen-Fiorot fight, I guess, matters more. Morgan Charrier had an incredible, like, chef's kiss, beautiful knockout via body kicks. And then the Farid Basharat went out there and just effing dominated Clayson Rodriguez. I picked that fight for you guys last weekend. I did not expect it to be so one-sided. Farid Basharat may be the better Basharat brother. He is a motherfucker. He is a guy to look for. Bantamweight is stacked, and with guys like him in there, who knows? He's got two great wins, Damon Blackshear, and now Clayson Rodriguez. He's definitely a guy to look out for. We're going to breeze through the middle segment of the show. What's hot? We are going to talk about Laura Sanko. Laura Sanko is apparently filling in on this card for Joe Rogan, or maybe Joe Rogan just didn't want to do it, and I don't blame him. The UFC is on its final trip around the world. I guess we had Singapore, and then we had France, and then now we have Australia. I don't blame Joe for not wanting to do that 12, 16, however long flight to Australia, especially for this card. So we got Laura Sanko stepping in to take his place. One would assume it's going to be Jon Anik, DC, and Laura Sanko. And this trio has never commentated together. I'm curious to see the mastermind of Anik and the mastermind of Sanko work together. I think, man, if we ever get a card where we can get Paul Felder, Jon Anik, and Laura Sanko on it together, like, I think Sanko and Felder do freaking awesome together. Jon Anik is just a consummate professional. You could put Jon Anik with anyone. You can put him with me. Like, he will knock it out of the park every time. And DC and Sanko, they've done some Contender Series stuff together. They seem to be able to bounce things off each other really well. She'll refer to DC. She'll say, DC, tell us about the wrestling. And that's where DC is the best. DC is actually still, he can go off on tangents. He'll talk about fast food, whatever he'll talk about. But he's a really good commentator. He's great at breaking down the wrestling, and that is where he shines. Sanko is great everywhere. She's just like I'm not going to call her the women's version of Anik, but she is just as prepared as Jon Anik. That woman is so prepared. She's really, really good at commentary. Yes, she's a pretty face. Everybody knows. Of course, she's gorgeous, but that doesn't matter. Like, that's not why she's here. She's here because she's really good. I remember when she first started doing stuff for the Contender Series, she started off as an in-cage announcer. The UFC brought her on as an in-cage announcer. And then she told Dana, like, hey, I want to do the in-cage, I want to do the interviews, and I want to commentate. And I remember there was a couple episodes where she was running around the whole entire Apex. And after that, she showed Dana, like, hey, she can do it all. And now she went from that over these past few years to now commentating on the pay-per-view with Anik and DC. I'm really happy for her. Number one, it's great for women's sports, period. I talk about this to my fiance all the time, where I think MMA is probably the number one sport for representation for women. I really do think when it comes to tons of other sports, you can look at WNBA, you can, women's soccer, they are not doing comparable numbers to men. But when it comes to combat sports, especially MMA, even boxing, women's boxing is not treated the same. Women are treated just the same as men are in MMA. They bring in good viewers. Women are just as popular as men in the sport, and having someone like Laura Sanko around really just boasts that up. So I think that it's great for combat sports, and it's great for MMA. And Laura Sanko is just real good at her job. So big shout out to her. Another thing I want to talk about is poor Ciryl Gane. The dude's fighting at home in front of a giant arena. The crowd in Paris was nuts. I think that's probably crowd of the year. They were great. But some freaking assholes broke into his house and did a home invasion while he's fighting the main event. And to his apartment, they did over they stole over $150,000 worth of shit. So yeah, he got a $50,000 Friday the night bonus. You got to assume he's making more than $150K to fight. Ciryl Gane's probably making 200, 250. He's a pretty big name, and he's a heavyweight and multiple main event guy. Previous interim champ. Ciryl Gane makes some good money to fight. But that's got to suck. You go put in a fight camp, all the things, and then you come home and your house is your freaking crib's broken into, $150,000 worth of damage. That's just terrible. Obviously, there's not a lot to talk about if I'm talking about Ciryl Gane's house getting broken into. But that sucks, guys. Like, supposedly someone close to him leaked the information where he lived and where he was going to be while he was gone, and who knows what they stole. Shit, they probably stole his UFC belt, which is just terrible. If you did that, shame on you. Moving on to the final segment of the show. In with the new, we got the UFC 293 card coming up this weekend. Pretty mid pay-per-view, in my opinion. It's funny. This is in Australia, and I would say that if I could compare this card to something, I would compare it to Outback Steakhouse. Will I eat it? Yes. Will I hopefully go with a family member that picks up the tab? Also, yes. Just a very, gosh, we do have the UFC Noche coming up next week where we do get a title fight for free. But this card is just not the best. We've got that the main card is literally, it opens with Tyson Pedro versus Anton Chakali. Chakali doesn't have a win in the UFC. Justin Tafa versus Austin Lane. Tafa's fun. Lane is unproven. Very unproven. And Tafa's just, he's just like the Wish version of Mark Hunt. I was going to break down the Manon Kopp fight, when he was booked against Kai Kara France. That would have been probably the best fight on this card, including the main event, including the co-main event. Two super high-level dudes going at it. Now Manon Kopp has actually got a new opponent, Felipe Dos Santos. He's a dude that was supposed to fight on the Contender Series 2 weeks ago, I believe. They pulled him from that. He's a Shudo box guy. It's got the blonde hair, very Shudo box style dude. I'm not going to pick that fight for you guys, though, just because it's not. Number one, it's Manon Kopp, and this fight might not even happen. Manon Kopp might miss weight. His opponent might. Manon Kopp is just plagued with fight pullouts and weird things, and I'm too scared to even pick this fight. I hope it happens because Manon Kopp is great. And Felipe Dos Santos, will he lose this fight? More than likely. But is he a fun addition to the flyweight division? Yes, especially with that Shudo box style. But first fight we're going to talk about. Carlos Ulberg versus Da-Un Jung, and this is not on the main card, which it probably should be. And Carlos Ulberg is definitely Israel's, anywhere where Israel fights, Carlos Ulberg fights. He's fighting Da-Un Jung. Odds on that fight. Ulberg's a pretty hefty favorite, minus 245. Da-Un Jung comes back in at plus 210. And Da-Un Jung is a guy that, it's one of those, I'm not going to call him a stereotypical Korean fighter, but he also kind of is a stereotypical Korean fighter. He had a really nice win against Kennedy and Chukwu. Had that decision fight, that decision win against William Knight, the draw against Sam Alvey. Yes, it was back in 2020, was very weird. The knockout against Mike Rodriguez was good. Everything was looking great for him. Everything was trending great for him until they matched him up with Jacoby. Jacoby knocked him out in the first round, and then Devin Clark went out there and kind of was able to just out wrestle him, outstrike him, and beat him everywhere. And Devin Clark's okay. He's tough as fuck, but it's Devin Clark. He's a meddling light heavyweight. It's going to be fighting Ulberg, and Ulberg is a guy that out of everyone on this whole entire card, he probably has the most upside, where he's a good-looking dude. He's violent. He comes from a good camp. And yes, his knockout loss to Kennedy and Chukwu, he just brawled with him and got caught brawling, and he hurt Nchukwu and almost finished him multiple times. But the fight against Fabio Sharon didn't fight. Sharon's corner was literally apologizing to Ulberg after the fight was over. Knocked out Tafon Nchukwu. Tafon is probably no longer in the UFC, and Tafon was definitely a small light heavyweight. Since then, he's fought at middleweight. The knockout against Nikolai Negumereanu, that was a great knockout. Negumereanu is a good fighter, and I thought Negumereanu was going to win that fight. And then he looked even better against Ethor Pretoria. Ulberg Dong Jung is probably better than what the odds portray. He's probably better than his last few fights. He's a huge man. He's giant. Yeah, like every light heavyweight. What is his height? Okay, he's 6'3", but he's just huge. Like, he's broad. He's a giant freaking man. And Ulberg's also a big dude. I think Ulberg will be able to get on the front foot. I think he's going to be faster. He's better at timing his shot. Ulberg has a good cross. He also throws a good hook behind it as well. I think he will be able to just pressure Dong Jung, kind of lace him up with jabs, get him on the back foot, and then probably finish him along the cage. He's really good at setting up his hooks. He has good kicks, and I think he's just going to be the faster dude than Da Un Jung. There's not even much to say about this fight, unfortunately. I think, again, Ulberg has the upside, especially from the part of the world he comes from. He's going to always fight on these Aussie cards. And yeah, I don't think this is a very favorable matchup to Jung. Jung may be getting his UFC cut slips. He may be on his way out after this one. I'm curious to see if Ulberg wins this fight. They need to get him up the rankings. I think a fight with him and Jacoby would be really, really fun, or even a fight with him and like Azmat Mirzakhanov. I know those are two dudes that are, contenders or, whatever, but I think that those would be two really, really fun fights. Or even like Ulberg versus Volkan Oezdemir. That's the one to make. I think if Ulberg wins this fight in impressive fashion, we can match him with Volkan Oezdemir. I really like that. I think that'd be super fun. But my pick on this one, I'm going to go with the favorite. I have been picking fights for you guys kind of willy-nilly because I haven't been betting them. I don't gamble on fights as much as I used to. I'm having to do so much tape study and so much other work for this show and the other stuff I do that I have just kind of steered away from the sports betting thing and kind of just been talking about stuff for more fun. But if you're going to lay coin on this, like a parlay, having Ulberg as a parlay piece, maybe, parlay him with someone like Manon Cop, or, parlay Ulberg or bet Ulberg within the distance. Or maybe you can parlay him and Izzy and get a decent number there. But I definitely think Ulberg's going to be a big part of people's parlay pieces. And I like him to win this fight. I like him to win it by knockout. I'm going to go second round knockout. So pencil that in, definitely bet the under. And I think maybe even Ulberg under 2.5 makes a lot of sense. Moving on to the second heavyweight fight on the main card. And this fight should definitely be on the main card. We have Tai Tuivasa fighting Alexander Volkov, Drago, poor Tai Tuivasa. The dude goes on a run, knocks out Derek Lewis, and he just can't get an easy fight. Real quick, the odds: Tuivasa is a plus 210 underdog. Alexander Volkov's a minus 250 favorite. I think the odds will actually continue to shift, and I think Volkov will become more of a favorite as the fight starts coming up. Looking at Tai Tuivasa's record, he went on that winning streak. He knocks out Stefan Struve, which is really funny because he kicked him in the face when he was jumping over the cage. He knocks out Harry Hunsucker. Harry Hunsucker shouldn't have been in the UFC. His knockout against Greg Hardy was impressive. He got touched and had to reset, whatever, and then goes and knocks out Greg Hardy. He knocks out Augusto Sakai, and he knocks out Derek Lewis. The dude was on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fight winning streak, all knockouts. He was on a 3 fight losing streak before that. And now he's back again, losing 2 fights in a row. He had a moment against Ciryl Gane and knocked down Gane with a big overhand, dropped Gane. And then he went out there and got finished in under a minute against Sergey Pavlovich. The time between those 2 fights I didn't like. The Ciryl Gane fight was on September 3rd of 2022. He got knocked out, and then he got knocked out again on December 3rd of 2022. I think the UFC probably shot him some coin and was like, hey, we really need you to take a fight. Tuivasa's a fun fucking guy. He's gonna go out there and he's gonna have a brawl with every single person he fights. Ciryl Gane had so much success kicking him to the body, just using his straight punches. Volkov is a dude that can. His short notice fight with Greg Hardy, like Volkov has got every ability in the world to go out there and just get on the front foot and murk Greg Hardy. Like what he did to Walt Harris was super impressive. Just destroyed Walt Harris. However, that was like right after Walt Harris's stepdaughter had died and everything. So there's an asterisk with that, whatever. But his knockout against Werdum, his knockout against Overeem was, Overeem was definitely on the way out there, but that was him really showing that he can go and get on the front foot. And then his knockout against Rosenstrike and his knockout against Romanov. I think this fight is really hard for Tuivasa. And I say that because I think if Volkov gets on the front foot, he's so long. He's got good power. He's also transformed his body. He's definitely a lot bigger of a dude. He kind of got manhandled and still was able to get up and have success late in his fight with Curtis Blades. He did lose against Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall went out there and got him with a straight armbar, a very heavyweight type submission. But Tom Aspinall's a super elite athlete and probably the best heavyweight in the world, in my opinion. Hot take. But the way he just hunted down Rosenstrike is a very, very dangerous dude. Rosenstrike is just as dangerous as Tuivasa on the feet when it comes to power. Rosenstrike may be more dangerous, if not just as equally dangerous as Tuivasa. And Romanov is another big dude. Romanov came in looking like an old sack of potatoes in that fight. But I think Volkov, he loves the straight kicks, and that's what Gane had tons of success against Tuivasa with. I think this is going to be a really bad fight for Tuivasa. Volkov cannot have the fight he had against Greg Hardy in this fight. If he goes out there, just puts a jab on Tuivasa and is willing to stay on the outside and coast, this could look like the Derek Lewis fight where he is winning 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes of the fight and then just gets caught with something. Look what Tuivasa was able to do against Ciryl Gane. No one has had more. It's crazy to say this, but when you look at the actual fights, no one has had more success striking with Ciryl Gane, just plain striking, than Tai Tuivasa. No one. Francis Ngannou didn't have as much. Francis Ngannou couldn't touch him. And Tuivasa sat down, flash knockdown, and nearly finished Ciryl Gane. Tuivasa's got tons of power. Tuivasa is a super tough dude. I love that he has waited. He's suffering 2 knockouts in a row, and he's probably going to get knocked out in this fight too, unfortunately. But I love the elbows that he showed against Derek Lewis too, where he He's another one of the only dudes that has just won an absolute brawl with Derek Lewis. Tuivasa is a good heavyweight. Again, it's heavyweight. It is heavyweights, but he is a good heavyweight. He can brawl. If you get stuck in a brawl with Tuivasa, unless your name is Sergey Pavlovich, like it's a 50, it could be a 50-50 fight. I think Volkov just goes down there, walks him, gets him on the back foot with the jab, crushes him with those stabbing body kicks, the same body kicks that Gane landed. Volkov loves that body kick and just starts wrapping that. Volkov will throw his he'll throw his straight right behind the jab, but sometimes he'll start looping it around the guard. Sometimes he'll put a little loop on it, and I think he'll just, be able to just jab him up and start really hurting him with that cross. And I think that teep to the body is going to be probably his most used weapon in this fight. I'm going to go Volkov, another chalk pick. Probably, I love watching Manon fight again, but I'm not breaking down that fight because it's not the Kai Kara France fight, and I'm butthurt about that. And the way that Manon fights go, I don't even know if the fight's going to happen. So this is my second most looked forward to fight on the card, probably. And again, chalk. Sorry, guys. Going chalk today. Moving on to the main event. We have Israel, the last style bender, Adesanya versus Sean Strickland. And just got a notification on my phone. Jared Cannonier will be weighing in as the backup. So Jared Cannonier has made his way out to Australia from New Mexico, Arizona. One of those two places. They look the same. If you're ever driving through them, they look exactly the same. But yeah, Jared Cannonier will be the backup. So good on Jared Cannonier. He hopefully has a pocket full of crystals, and maybe he'll be able to fight. But we got Sean Strickland. He's a plus 475 underdog. Is he coming back at minus 650 as a favorite? This fight got put together on like 6 weeks notice. They just needed, this is a fight night card already. But here we have it. This fight should be very, very one-sided. But I think that there's ways that Strickland can have success, however unlikely it may be. Obviously, everyone says to wrestle Izzy. That's where his thing is, but that's his weakness, is his wrestling because of the Jan Blachowicz fight. If you've listened to any sort of media work I've done, you'll know that I'm not the hugest fan of Israel Adesanya, and it's not his fighting style. It's more of just the personality he is and who he has become and showed himself to be. I thought the Duplessis thing was pretty distasteful. Again, I have my opinion, and you know what they say about opinions? Everyone has one. They also have Israel should be able to just come out here and he can have the Yoel Romero fight with Strickland. Strickland does not address leg kicks at all. And he is a dude that will pick up that front foot. He doesn't check. Sean Strickland just doesn't really check kicks. Izzy's leg kicks are going to really, really mess Strickland up here. I think that's going to be his biggest used weapon, is just get behind the leg kicks on Strickland. And I could see him, I could even see him TKOing Strickland with kicks. Strickland is super tough. He can take damage. He really only has ever gotten hurt. We saw him get hurt a little bit by Usman at 170. We've seen him get hurt and finished by Aleski dos Santos. He's famous on this card for whatever reason. But we haven't really seen, he's fought Jared Cannonier, a very known power puncher. And the only dude that really hurt him was Alex Pereira. And that's Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira also knocked out Izzy. Alex Pereira can knock out anyone in the world. I think Alex Pereira can knock out anyone at 185, 205, and at heavyweight. He's just an anomaly. He is Powhatan Stonehands for a reason. Izzy's feints. Strickland is such a reactive dude. He has really good vision. I still think he might have the best vision in this division. he will hand fight. He loves to hand fight. He loves to try to parry punches. He'll use his forearms to block. He's a very weird boxer. No schooled fighter will ever learn how to fight like him. No one will ever be taught to fight like him. But he definitely bites on a lot of feints. That's something that Izzy's going to have a lot of success with here. Izzy's boxing is okay. He can kind of sometimes get overzealous in the pocket and overswing in the pocket with people. Even in his first fight with Robert Whittaker, where he iced Whittaker, he's in the pocket swinging with his eyes closed. There's a still shot where Israel clearly has his eyes closed and he's just swinging in the pocket. Strickland isn't the guy to make him pay for something like that. Strickland has a really good jab, might have the best jab in this division. I think where Strickland's success may lie is to really take on like a flyweight style grappling against Izzy. Izzy is really, really good against the cage. I don't think Sean Strickland is fast enough. I don't think he has good enough takedowns to take down Izzy in the middle of the open cage. But I think where he can have success is if he can get Izzy on the back foot, which I don't think is likely because he's just not enough of a powerful puncher for Izzy to respect it. But if he can use like a Pantoja style game where he can, get Izzy to get against the cage and then just like standing back takes and trip up the legs. We've seen Strickland do things like that. He will take someone's back standing and then try to, interlock the legs and trip them to the ground. He is a better grappler than Izzy. He doesn't use his grappling enough. He will need to use his grappling in this fight to have any success at all. Izzy's faster. Izzy has much better kicks. I could see Izzy kicking Strickland with 25 million calf kicks and then switching to a question mark kick and just knocking his block off. Izzy has good cardio. Sean Strickland has good cardio. They're both super tough. I think the press conference is going to show a lot. We're going to see where Izzy's at mentally. We know that Strickland is a big talker. We know he loves to talk. We will see how angry he can get Israel. Maybe he can force him into a fight where he's making mistakes out of anger. We have seen Izzy make some mistakes in some fights. However, he is world class. And at men's middleweight, Sean Strickland is also world class, but I think Izzy is just a tier above him. Strickland has to nullify Izzy's kickboxing game, which is just so unlikely. And I think his best success is, again, against the cage, trying to get like standing back takes or trying to trip him to the ground from the back, standing on the cage. And if he can squeeze out 2 or 3 rounds like that, maybe he has a chance, but the odds don't favor him. Izzy's minus 650 today. I'm recording this on Monday, September 4th. By the time the fight starts, Izzy's going to be at least minus 800. I think he's just going to kick Sean Strickland to bits here. I think he's going to feint him to death and just kick him to death. I would not be surprised if this fight does not ends in just a TKO via leg kicks. And Sean doesn't check him. Sean is a better wrestler than probably Marvin Vettori, which is a dude that was able to get Israel to the ground. And Israel's gonna have problems when guys like Khamzat Chimaev and Bo Nickel and Ikram Alaskirov start making their way into the rankings. But for now, Israel's title reign has come with a lot of really awesome timing, and that's not his fault at all. But if you look at his record, he hasn't fought anyone that is a true wrestler. You could call Yoel Romero a true wrestler, but the only person that's really tried to truly press a wrestling game on him was Jan Blachowicz, and Jan Blachowicz won that fight. And there's just really no one else around him that can do it. Robert Whittaker had a lot of success in their second fight. A lot of people scored the second fight for Robert Whittaker. So that is a replicable game plan for someone like Sean Strickland, but he doesn't have the speed. He doesn't have the entries. And he just, the way he circles out, and you can get him to bite on a feint, drop his hands to parry something, and then just clock him with a hook like Pereira did. Israel does not have the one-shot power that Alex Pereira has, but even in the Jan Blachowicz fight, Jan Blachowicz said that he was surprised by Israel's power. Israel has great timing, and I just see him kicking him to bits and then probably just question mark kicking him in the head. Again, not the best pay-per-view, guys. The next weekend card is going to be great. We have some pretty good fights coming up. The rest of the year looks pretty good. This one will be fine. I'll be recapping this one for you guys next week, and then I'll be talking about the Shevchenko-Grasso fight too. So there's a lot to look forward to. And then on Wednesday, again, Shillen and Duffy show, I'll be on here. It'll be live on YouTube. It's at 6 p.m. Pacific, so 9 p.m. Eastern. Tune into that. This is the show. Check the kick. Thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy the fights.